Good evening, Bruce Flockhart. Nice to meet you.
Evening, Martin. Nice to meet you.
Have you? I've got you on eventually after weeks of terrible organisation of times and dates and illnesses. I've been really bad. I had a really bad bug. Just twist my camera there.
Yeah, glad you're feeling.
I know,
a bit better.
definitely a lot.
There's no rush. It's not like we've got loads else to do.
I know, it's true, isn't it? Are you working from home as well?
Yeah, so I'm just working from home. So yeah, I'm just basically in the house.
It's crazy.
All day, all night, all weekend.
It's
But
unreal.
I'm lucky here though. We kind of live a bit out in the country a little
Oh,
bit.
do you?
So there's loads of places we can go walk.
Where do you stay about? Actually.
Just outside Kelty, between Kelty
Oh, do you?
and Kinross.
Fife.
So
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
That's lovely up there, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good. I think there's quite a bit of badminton played in Kinross. You know, there's a club up there and stuff. It's quite good.
yeah, there's a club up at the school. It's maybe not as popular as it was in years gone by, but it's still going, which is more than some other clubs
Yeah.
in the kind of Fife area.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Sue Jocelyn. She was from Edinburgh, and she's moved. She's actually emigrated to Kinrossshire. It's Perthshire, isn't it? Perthshire, isn't it? It's Kinrossshire. Is it Kinrossshire? No,
They call it Perth and Kinross. So
Perth and Kinross.
Kinrossshire,
Yeah,
Perthshire.
that's right.
It kind of all mingles.
Beautiful countryside, as you say. If you're just outside as well, lovely. Yeah, really nice. And okay, let's get on with the questions. So your full name, please.
Bruce Duncan Flockhart.
Bruce Duncan. An obligatory question: where does Duncan come from?
No idea.
Do you know?
No.
You've never asked. You've never asked your parents. Why'd you call me Duncan? Maybe for next time.
No.
And your age, Bruce?
Never really wanted me that
No.
much, to be honest.
Most people, well, maybe I'll make you think that's it. And what's your age, Bruce? How old are you?
I'm 48, 49 this year.
48, 49. That's great. And where are you from originally?
So New Mills is where my parents still
Oh, is
live.
it?
So that's just kind of west of Dunfermline. So it's about 20 minutes from where I am now.
Brilliant. And have you always been in that area? Have you moved about at all? Or?
Pretty much, apart from 1 year where I moved to Glasgow
Yeah.
when I was trying to play full time.
Brilliant.
So I had a flat that I shared with Craig Robertson
Did
for
you?
a year. But that was towards the end of my career, and I came back here, basically to marry my wife Kirsty. So
Nice.
the flat was
That's good. That's good. Did you meet her? Did you meet her in Glasgow or over here? Where did you meet your wife? Or?
so she's from over here as well.
Brilliant.
So
Aye.
that was through Badminton 'cause she played for Scotland
Did
as
she?
well. So
And is that how you met her?
yeah, just through Badminton, and I actually coached her and her sister when they were younger,
Really? Wow. Very good. That's good. And what was she? Is she? Do you ever play with her?
Yeah,
Next.
so we played a few tournaments together. I think we got to the semis of the nationals
Did
one
you?
year.
And how do you get?
I don't mind
How do you get on
moving
court?
singles.
Is there any arguments?
It was generally okay. It was more fun than it
Was
was.
it?
But we're both quite competitive.
Yeah.
I used to struggle because playing the doubles, playing people that I would beat at singles, it would frustrate me a little bit.
Definitely.
You know,
And
if this was just singles.
do you think you have the right mentality? It's a very different mentality, isn't it? Singles to doubles, and it interests me. You know, when people that play singles can't play doubles, you think, how is that possible?
Yeah, well, I think I was a lot better at singles, and I got a lot better results. But I still played a lot of doubles.
Did you all the time?
So I played right through my career. I played doubles.
Did you?
So, got to the semis of the nationals a few times.
Yeah.
With different people. It's just because I was so successful at singles. That's kind of you wouldn't have probably known that.
No, well, exactly right. I mean, most of what I've heard about you is mostly from Andy, and obviously from Jim as well. It's, you've obviously had some great rivalries with Jim for a long time, and yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Because he'd won a couple of national titles, and then I won a couple, and then I won a couple more,
Yeah.
and I must have played them about probably 4 years in a row.
Really?
And we kind of halved that over time in the national finals. I went on to, because I played full time and played a bit more, and he went to work,
That's
so
right.
it was a kind of different path. So I won a few more after that. So, yeah.
And you don't play now?
Just really where I am, there's not really an opportunity to play that much.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of coaching. My son plays. I'm involved in clubs, involved in regional squads.
Oh, yeah.
So it just gets to the point where you're doing so many other things you don't have time
to play yourself. And what do you feel about that? How do you feel about having played, obviously, at such a high standard? How do you feel about going to play in club badminton, that kind of thing, and just going? How do you feel that you have the capacity just to go to play and enjoy, or do you think you just get frustrated?
I struggle a bit. I get frustrated.
Yes.
Yes. I quite like competition. I played veterans for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Played with Craig Robertson, and we won the kind of nationals for our age group type thing. And it was quite good fun, but again, it was back to it was frustrating because we're playing against people who normally we would probably beat them.
Excuse me, there's no smoke alarm going on.
And then it was harder.
What do you mean? You would have beaten them in your day? Do you mean, or
yes, in your day. So when you're playing people who, have really kept really fit.
Yes.
But in your day, you could beat them.
Yes, that's right.
But now you're not as fit because the old body's kind of not held up because all the training you did when you were younger.
That's right.
I've got quite a bit of a dodgy back, so
Have you?
if I push too hard, I struggle. So that even if I wasn't doing a lot of hours, I probably would struggle to play.
Yeah. Do you miss it? Do you miss playing like that, or do you think you would only ever play then? Do you think if you had that ability to have that level of competition, or do you ever feel that you think to yourself, I'm going to get fit enough to do it again, or how do you think about that?
Well, I've done that a few times.
Have
you? Last year, my son didn't have a doubles partner.
Sorry, how old is it? How old is your son, Bruce?
So he'll be 19.
Oh, really? So he's good. He's a good age then, yeah.
And we got to the final of the Dunfermline Open. And I hadn't been to the final of the tournament for. I was trying to think when the last time was, but it's probably 15 years or something.
Yeah.
So to do that with my son was actually,
that's
that was
great experience, absolutely. And did you have any frustrated moments? Say, what do you do that for? Do you lose it like that as you would with a partner, or are you quite controlled with him?
No, absolutely fine. I was more frustrated with myself because we got beaten the final. By the time it came to the final, I was probably the weak link. I was a bit getting a bit tired by that point.
Definitely. You didn't expect it. You go in for a bit of fun and you end up getting. Well, you can't go to work on the Monday for sure. And
pretty much.
And how do you coach your son? What's your son's name? Callum. And do you coach Callum then?
Yeah, I have done right through. My wife has worked with him as well, obviously.
Yeah.
And he, in the early days, got a bit of help off my dad, who was my main coach. Right through. So he's had input from, quite a few different people, and some of my friends like David Gilmer have helped him out. Yeah. Gordon Haldane, ex-players, have helped him out as well along the way. So it's been quite good. I've been able to use my contacts.
Definitely. Huge. And what's your feeling on what when you look at coaching? You've obviously done a bit of coaching with him, and what kind of? I mean, I talked to Andy. Obviously, he's quite heavily very involved in the physical side of things and the fitness side of things, and making sure you're fit and strong and pushes quite hard. How do you feel about that with Callum?
I think that's important. But these days, the probably priority for me is making sure the guys are technically capable of going to the very top level.
Yeah.
Because if you're not technically sound, getting the efficiency, consistency, and all that kind of stuff can be quite a challenge.
Yeah.
So I've kind of when I've been working with Cam has been a little bit more focused than there was in my day on the technical side.
Yeah. And are you big on drills then, or a movement around the court, getting from front to back, corner to corner, that stuff?
Movement is key.
Making it natural.
Just trying to make everything as efficient as you can. Don't do anything you don't need to do is my kind of the way I look at
it's good. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was taught heavily on footwork and getting back to the corners and that kind of stuff, and getting back to the tee and kind of getting that, as you say, it becomes second nature to you after you've done it for a bit. And it's it's obviously really important. And so it's quite interesting. Obviously, he's got two coaches. Your wife as well, Kirsty, coaches him as well. And how is she different to you then? Do you think? What do you think
I'm probably the get it done. This is the way to do it. Kirsty's she's got a very good kind of way of getting on with everybody.
Yeah.
So she kind of she'll come across differently, but end up giving the same message. Cause,
good.
She coaches a lot. She runs a club.
Does she?
She's the Scottish coach for the senior disability
squad. Yeah, good.
So she's coaching at high level.
Yeah, for sure. I've got so much respect for that disability. Having interviewed Colin Leslie, I don't know if you saw that interview with Colin. He's a double amputee from Edinburgh. Do you know Colin at all? Yeah,
we know him well because I've actually helped Kirsty at a few of the sessions and done a bit of work with Colin just to help out. A bit of volunteering. Yeah, so
you should watch the interview. It's very, very good, especially at the end where he takes his leg off. And he talks. Well, on the end of it, the end section of it, the last probably 5 minutes is him talking about the technology in his legs and how it's developed. He started off with one with a wooden foot, and he said he would be playing and a foot would come off, kind of thing, in the middle of the game or whatever. And he says he ended up playing he's got a character, right? So he'd end up playing with screws he would go in with screws and the screwdriver and his thing, and he had to screw the foot back on again, kind of thing. And then he comes to the end of the actual video. If you look at it, he shows you. He literally takes it off and like that. He says, "This is that, and this is that, and this is that," and it's like got all the ball. It's graphite, super light, incredible technology in it. But he talks about how it developed over the years, right? Over the last 20 years, how it started with this, and then it got one like this, then it got one like that. My funniest, my favourite bit of the whole interview, to be fair, was when I asked him what shoe size he was. No, he's 9. He says I'm size 9. I says I don't know. I says to be very honest, I think I would choose. I would pick the biggest shoe I could get, or whatever's on offer. That's exactly what I said. Just whatever's on offer. I said you can just change the feet about it. No, it doesn't work like that. Anyway, it's quite interesting. Good. So you're 48 new mils.
So I suppose his legs is a bit like the technology and things like rackets.
Yeah.
I probably started with a racket with a wooden head that I'd got off my mum. So
seriously, it was really interesting. Really interesting to see. I wonder if I could show you. I think I took a screenshot of it. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't take an actual image off the thing. I'll just try and get it up on my screen so I could show you. Because it's actually quite incredible. I'll let you see it. I'll share it. I'll share it on the post. It's great. It's really good. But you should watch it. Colin's in, and also he talks openly about how it happened. His incident. Do you know what the incident? Do you know what it was?
I vaguely think, did he not fall off a roof or off some scaffolding?
Just a ladder. A ladder. Was coming down off a ladder. Coming down off a ladder, and his dad was holding the ladder, and he says, "Oh, you need to come out of the way if I'm going to get down off this ladder." And his dad turned away, and the ladder slipped, and that was it. And he had years of operations, and eventually just ended up, incredible. And then he had a couple of years out, and then said, "No, I'm going to beat this thing." Great story. I would recommend you watch it. What age were you when you first played, Bruce? Sorry, I missed one. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I've got a younger brother, Douglas.
And did he play?
He played a little bit, but he was one of these kids that could do anything he turned his hand to. So he did everything. He played tennis, he did skateboarding, he did biking, and just did loads of different things all the time.
And he could choose.
So he didn't really do one thing.
I was like that. And I was rubbish at all of them. No, I'm not.
The thing was, he was quite good at most
Was
of
he?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was all right. I was just. I think you've got to. Actually, you look back and you see people like that, and you think, God, I wish I was like that. But it's true. It's true. You know, you just if you focus on one thing, you'll be the best at it. And look how well you've done. You know, no, all respect to you. So your brother Douglas, did he ever play then?
Yeah, I played, primary school,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit into high school,
Yeah.
but no.
Do you remember when you first played, Bruce?
I can remember playing primary school badminton.
Yeah.
So
That was in Dunfermline, was it?
Yeah, 9, 10.
Yeah, good.
I presume it was at the kind of one of the local clubs, but I don't really remember much about the starting playing
Didn't you?
until I maybe went to the kind of the high school clubs.
Really?
Type thing.
And do you remember why you first played? Was it at school, or what? Do you remember what it was when you very first started? Do you remember why your first time you held a racket? If you like.
My parents both played for
Really?
Scotland.
Oh, was that right?
My mum's got world and Commonwealth medals
Really?
for mixed doubles. So I think I was just taken along to badminton and then picked it up. So
Because they were going and they were there for hours, and you end up going with a racket and them saying, "Come on, can I come on?" In the break or
So I
something.
think my mum played on while I was young. My dad had stopped playing badminton by the time I'd started, I think.
Yeah.
And he'd kind of moved over to squash.
Did he?
So he was more of a squash player when I was young.
And was it a big area? Is it a big thing over there, badminton in Dunfermline? When you were of that age, was it a big thing? I guess it was the.
Oh yeah. There was loads of clubs, and each club had multiple teams.
Yeah.
The leagues had multiple divisions. It was really quite popular. The local area had a county team.
Yeah.
That we used to be in the top league and go down and play the best in England. When I was a kind of teenager to late teens. But that's all kind of
and how much
kind of drifted off. Unfortunately,
how much do you attribute to that then, to your successes? Do you think to having that infrastructure when you were growing up, when you were younger? I mean, Julie was talking the same thing, and a lot of people have talked about how big it was and how busy it was, and it was a really great scene, and there was so much badminton on and such a good quality. With that not being there at the moment, I wonder what talent's getting wasted or.
I think the difference is that there isn't somewhere for everybody to play now, and there aren't as many people playing.
Yes.
Locally in clubs.
Yeah.
So what happens is a young player comes along, and if they don't fit into one club, there aren't really many other choices when they get to their late teens and adults.
Yeah, really.
So they kind of get lost a little bit. Whereas if they didn't fit into one club, they could jump across to another club. And when I was playing, and they would find somewhere to keep playing.
Yeah.
So if we can get that back, that can all.
Edinburgh is very successful. Edinburgh itself, I play.
It's got loads of clubs. That's what.
That's exactly right. It's exactly. I mean, there's a club on a. If you wanted to play, people come to me all the time. I fancy a game on a Monday. Where can I play? I fancy a game on a Tuesday. Where can I play? And they've all become very inclusive. It's not a kind of thing where you're a membership thing. If you want to play badminton on a Monday night, send somebody a message, say, "Can I come along?" And you can be all over Edinburgh most nights.
Good.
Yeah.
It's good to hear, because I think that's the kind of thing that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
20 years ago. The
inclusivity.
They forgot that they need the young players.
Yeah.
They had the same players that I visited a couple of clubs 10 years after I stopped playing at clubs, and it would be the same people.
Yeah.
And there'd be no real new faces. Yeah. And then another 10 years later, those people are, gone, and the club's struggling because
that's right.
They didn't keep new people coming in.
That's right.
And that's just the way it was. But then all the clubs were competing against the new things that were out, computer games, movies, all these different things that the kids got interested in. And it was, well, do I go to a club and not enjoy it, or do I go out with my pals and go to the cinema on a Friday night?
It starts with somebody at the grassroots, doesn't it? Somebody that just loves the game, that just wants to somebody that's quite selfless, just loves the game, quite happy to get a whole load of kids together. And because kids, it sounds like, it's kids love it. You know what I mean? Whenever you get a group of kids, if you get 16 kids in a hall and give them a racket on 4 courts and a whole load of shuttles, they'll have a ball. You can leave them alone for 2 hours and they'll be there, right? It's
kids badminton in Fife and that kind of area is quite healthy. It's that
progression,
older teen to adult where we struggle at the moment. Because some of our better ones, for example, go off to uni.
Yeah, of course.
So they go off to Glasgow or Edinburgh. So then they're lost to our local badminton community.
Yeah.
While they're away, and they're maybe back in the summer, but the clubs don't run in the summer.
Yeah.
So you can lose some of your kind of talent that way.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a massive pool, that you'd never build the momentum. So it's just about how do we kind of build the numbers at the bottom.
Yeah, that's right. And find somebody, find that person who, is just, that person that just loves it. That Bob Ula for Dunfermline, that's what you need. You need one of these people that just will come and just, I don't know, do Badminton Scotland support that kind of thing? Do they have people that do? I suppose they don't, do they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they've got regional development officers.
Do they?
And we've got, there's a lot of people in Dunfermline that are like Bob and really keen and do masses.
Yeah,
but you're fighting a little bit against the venues being available.
Yeah.
It's the usual thing that venues get expensive to run clubs. They've got to be economically viable.
That's right.
I
know it's hard.
It's a challenge.
It's hard. I know. So where did you start? So you started playing really because your parents, was it? Is it because your mum and dad? Yeah. Mostly your mum.
Yeah. Well, I remember going and watching my mum play.
Yeah.
When she was still playing when I was young enough to go and watch, and I can remember a few tournaments like going up north, and she'd be in the semis or finals, and there was maybe an empty court.
Yeah.
And you'd get to hit against some of the other guys that were in the finals.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, at that point I wouldn't have known who they were, but they'd be some of the better players in Scotland.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, you got to do that kind of thing.
Did you ever get a hankering to go away? Some people go away down to Milton, Keynes and that kind of thing. I don't know if that kind of thing existed back then, or did you ever think about going elsewhere, Denmark, whatever else?
I probably had the option a couple of times to go elsewhere.
Did you?
But just felt that I was better being in my home base.
Really?
Best will in the world, you can go down to Milton Keynes, and I did do it a few times, but you're not one of them because you're not one of them.
Yeah, that's right. No, I understand.
So and it's nothing. They haven't done anything wrong. It's just obviously their main interest is their own squad, and it has to be.
Yeah.
So it'd been a difficult one, but if I wanted to, I could have probably played for England.
Really?
Because my mum was English, so I could have made that jump if I wanted to. A bit like Robert Blair made it a few years. When he was young, he decided, he was going to go anywhere and do anything badminton. He was going to be down south.
That's right. It's true.
I don't know.
Kieran did that. Kieran did that as well, didn't he? Kieran Murray was in Milton Keynes as well.
Yeah, but he's remained a Scottish internationalist right through it, whereas Robert played for England.
Yeah. I was quite interested in Martin Campbell. When Martin Campbell went off to Loughborough, and that's obviously a really popular sports facility, sports university, isn't it? It's I think a lot of people go down there. And who else? Jordan Hart as well. What's that?
I think that's where Robert went.
Was it? Yeah, Loughborough University is a.
Quite a while ago.
Yeah, Loughborough University was a big sports facility, and Jordan Hart went there as well, and Martin Campbell, and somebody else I'm trying to think about as well. It's I think a lot of the. In fact, Jordan Hart, she met Chloe Birch there. I think if you're a badminton player, that's where you go To be honest with you, I think I was actually quite interested in Lyndon Williams as well, because he was in Wales and ended up going off to just to stay outside London. Stay outside London and virtually just go and play badminton in London, because he heard the standard was pretty good. Did you watch that interview? Watch that one. Lyndon Williams, he was talking about how he decided that he heard that the best badminton going on was in London, so he literally moved to London, kind of like I don't know, what's that? I can't remember what the old tale is about the streets are paved in gold kind of thing. He went to find the good, and he just stayed in some flat and just went and played badminton every day. At that age where you just kind of, I love badminton. I'm just going to go and play badminton every day. Brilliant,
There was a good hub at Wimbledon badminton.
Yes,
there were a lot of top players there for a while. I know a very famous name for the past, Morton Frost, was based there for quite a few years. Yeah. I don't know if Jim ever mentioned that story of getting to practice against him.
He did.
Yeah, it's one of his famous ones where he thought he was doing really well, and then Morton decided that he wasn't going to be doing so well.
He didn't elaborate on it much. I have to say, he just said he would go down to London, to Wimbledon 2 or 3 times, and there was a line judge or something. He said there was a line judge he was friends with down there, and he would just go and stay in his flat, and so he would get the kind of a nod that Morton Frost was coming over for a weekend or whatever, and he would just kind of get, I don't know if he get the train down or whatever it was at the time, and would just go and stay in Wimbledon and just go and play, and when Morton Frost was off, he would say, fancy a game, kind of idea. Amazing. What an experience that is, right?
Yeah, I went down to Wimbledon a couple of times to train. But I went to Milton Keynes, and one of the best trips I had there, I got to train for 2 or 3 days with Peter Rasmussen and Paul-Erik Høyer Larsen, world and Olympic champions. And that was quite a thing, was that actually when you train with them, you realise that they're not that far ahead.
Yeah.
So they might beat you easily, but in a training environment, you can compete with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that actually gave me quite a bit of confidence. And I can remember about maybe 4 or 6 weeks after that, I went and played in, it was Chinese Taipei, and I beat one of the top in the world to 15-2 in the first set. This was one of the Chinese guys, and it was just that build of confidence, and they'd come back for those few days, and it kept me going. I ended up losing that in 3 sets, but there's a funny story about that. The Chinese guy, Sun Yun was his name. I think about 6 months later, he was the world champion.
Really?
But it was one of the first tournaments in the year, so I was playing and went on, no expectation, playing away, and I get to, we was playing to 15 in those days.
Yes, of course.
So, and Craig Robertson was there, and he was doing the breaks, and he was up in the crowd, and then... What is
that breaks? What's doing the breaks? What's that? What do you mean?
So, between sets, you get a chance to speak to your coach. Right. So... I see.
So he was your guy, was he?
Yeah, and it was in like a sports hall, and behind the court there was like a little tunnel that led to the door. So I saw Craig walking in, and just as he walks in, the umpire announces 14-2 or whatever it was, and I'm serving. And I just happened to look across the Craig, and he walks into the hall and goes, total surprise, and like, what is going on? Because in a normal day,
he thinks he's dreaming.
To be the other way around. Another thing I remember about that match is that the top Danish players ended up behind the court watching, because one of them had to play the winner of the match, and I think it went to about 11 in the third. So I kind of got close. Yeah,
frustratingly close.
I lost, but I came off, and they were all like, well played. And, it was like, that's when you think, actually, I want to keep doing this.
Yeah. What age were you then?
So that was that.
Do you remember what age you were?
Oh, I would have probably been between 25 and 28.
Good, isn't it?
So I was probably full time at that point. So it'd been that period where I was playing full time.
Don't you think that the Asians are particularly good? I think they must have some clever, very clever coaching about pace and about how they conserve energy in rounds of tournaments. And don't you find that? Whenever I watch it, I'm fascinated by how they seem to have a skill of knowing how much effort to apply into an individual game, and kind of not. I find it fascinates me that you can play them. You can see them playing against Lin Dan, and Lee Chong Wei. You'll see them playing against each other, and they're full on all the time. But sometimes in the opening rounds of these tournaments, I watch the games and I think they're not giving 100% at all, and it feels like they're almost as part of their training, a part of their regime, to say, no, conserve. You will beat this guy, just conserve. Conserve your energy for the next. Conserve your energy. I've no disrespect to you, but what I'm saying is I think that might be part of the training where they actually taught to conserve their energies for people who the biggest challenges they know they'll have. Because you think how physically exhausting it must be.
You do that a little bit. You do it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the main difference tends to be that if you're a top player, you'll be quicker, you'll read the game better than a player who's not at your level.
That's correct.
So if you watched it now, so for example, if today I went on against a 12-year-old kid, it would look like, even though I'm kind of quite senior, maybe not anywhere near as fast as I was, it could look quite easy for me because I know where the shot was going. My movement's as efficient as it can be for my age. But when you're at that top level and you're in the peak top 10 and you play somebody that's 50, there's a difference in your speed, your consistency, your tactical awareness. All those things are there. And that just adds up to you can relax a little bit.
And that comes across. So while you're frantic on the other side of the court, he's quite relaxed. It's definitely all about the standard of competitor that you're used to. If you can play every single day and you train with, you look at the Danish squad, they're competing against each other, and you're there. Somebody walking into that, it's a tough gig, right?
That was kind of what I was saying about going and training with those Olympic and world champions, that you think they're way above you until you get in and train with them. And then you realise, actually, okay, you're maybe not as good, you're not quite there, but you can get closer than you think.
And I suppose it's not in the shots. You're all capable of moving the shuttle from one area of a court to every area of the court from wherever you are, which is the thing, isn't it? But it's about how you put it together, how you piece it together, I suppose. Yeah, interesting. Back to question. So, do you remember your first ever racket?
No, I reckon it was probably might have been a Carlton or a Vicort, something that my mum got from a sponsorship. Probably.
Did you always have loads of rackets in the house? And was your mum ever home, or was she always away every single weekend playing somewhere or other? Is that the world? Is that your world?
There weren't quite many tournaments in those days. Right. But she would have played all the Scottish ones in my time, and I can remember going to the Commonwealth Games, but not much about it because I must have been pretty young. Yeah,
how amazing to see your mum on that big shiny court. How amazing that must have been to see your mum out there.
Well, it might have been a wee black and white square in those days.
With the wooden racket. The name of your first club, was it what was your club? Did you play a lot of club badminton?
Not really.
Didn't you?
No, I played a lot. Trained a lot with my dad.
Did you?
So I wasn't reliant on club badminton. I played to just play, but it wasn't the kind of core of what I did.
So did you ever make any, like, so obviously when you're training with your dad, did you ever have that thing where you made loads of friends as such, or were you quite insular and played by yourself, coached yourself, and quite disciplined, would you say then?
I I was young, so whether I was disciplined or not.
But I mean, like, you got people, you go to a club, and there's all the camaraderie goes on alongside it. Did you not really have that, or where did you go for that to coaching and things?
The clubs only really, in those days, you went to a club once a week.
Yeah.
So you still did that. But I played tennis in the summer as well, which was a bit more social.
Yeah.
And quite a few of the players played tennis in the summer.
Yeah, too.
That was a thing you used to
do. I know
there's
a lot still do. I know a lot still do that.
Yeah. But, it wasn't until I was about maybe 14, 15 that I started playing all year.
Yeah, really.
And at that point, it was probably a bit more serious. But then my doubles partner, Barry Kinnaird, used to come and train with us at least once a week.
Yeah, nice.
So you were still training with people, and it wasn't like you were doing it all on your own.
When did you end up going over to Andy Cook?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that the other day. I can remember going and visit him as a youngster. Because obviously my dad coaching me, there was certain points where he was finding it difficult, I was finding it difficult.
Yeah.
But over the piece, it all worked very well. But I can't remember when I actually started it. It might have been when I was at university, but I'm not 100% sure. Andy probably knows. He
does know. He definitely does know. He recounted everything. When did you go to uni? Out of curiosity.
So I would have been about 19, I think.
Right. So when did you go? Did you Stirling? Right. Oh, it's handy. That's right, because Jim said you used to go and play with them at lunchtimes and stuff, right?
Yeah. So the Stirling University was good at the time because it had a sports scholarship scheme. So they helped you with morning training sessions.
Really?
You got access to the gym. You got free courts. You got guidance. You got a little bit of support for tournaments. So that was really good. They also gave me an extra year to finish my degree.
Really?
So I did my degree over 5 years instead of 4. So that meant that although I was studying, I was only doing about 2/3 of what my friends and the courses were doing. So that gave me enough time to keep training and competing.
Wow, isn't that amazing? Does that still exist, do you think?
Yeah, it's changed slightly. As I think they do, is it winning students now or something? Is it? And it's more a national thing.
No.
But Stirling University still got their sports programme. When I was there were some really good squash players and some really good tennis players. So, and I was at university there, then I was full-time for a few years, and then I went back and worked there.
Did you?
Yeah, so, between times, when I was there as a student, probably played a bit with Jim, but it was probably more when I worked there.
Yes.
When we were both he was well retired from competitive, and I was heading that way.
Yeah.
That we started playing squash as well as badminton.
Did you?
And it got to the point that we used to play for this stupid little gold plastic medal.
He mentioned
the little kids. And I've still got it upstairs.
Have you? He mentioned it. He actually mentioned that. He also mentioned a game that he played against each other. It was a 3-setter, and it was 14. You had 13 all, and he got 14-13, and then he served. He flicked you or something like that. He told me I was on the phone to him yesterday, and he says, "Ask him about the game. It was a 3-setter, 13 all. I got 14-13, and at I flicked him at the last, and he was raging."
It was so he'd won 2 nationals, I had won 2, and we played the next year, and I was winning the 3rd set, and I was up a bit, and I blew it a little bit, let him get back into it. Obviously, this is from my perspective.
Good,
you know.
good.
And I'm not sure if we went to setting or not, or whether
He said it was 13-all, and then he got 14-13. That's what he said.
Right. Okay. So that, yeah, I've obviously tried to banish it from my memory. But yes, he basically bounced the shuttle a couple of times, threw it up, overhand served, past my left ear. So, well, that's my recollection of what happened.
He'll love that. He will love that, Jim.
I managed to get it over the net, but it was such a shock.
Yeah.
Because it was, from my perspective, it was so high. But good on him. He yeah. On that day, he deserved to win. So I'll give him that.
As you say, you let him go. You let it go. You're winning, and you let him back in, as you say. That's good. So you didn't have a first club, the hall. What was your hall? Was it a sports hall you played in first of all? Or when your dad took you, where did you go?
Yeah, so we played at a place called Bruce Street Sports Centre. You can't play badminton there now. It was gifted to gymnastics.
Oh, right.
Maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
So it's gymnastics hall now.
Yeah.
But we played sometimes at my high school, Queen Anne High School.
Yeah.
There was a small community hall in Dunfermline that we used to play at. We just play wherever we could get coached, to be honest.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And have you always played with? Because of your mum, did you always have feather shuttles taken about?
No, we would. When I was younger, juniors played with plastics.
That was the way it was.
That's just the way it was.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and even junior tournaments were plastics in my day. Most of them. You very rarely played with feather shuttles.
Wow.
As far as I can remember. Till you got to maybe 16, 17, you'd play a bit more with feather shuttles.
And how was your dad as a coach? Was he quite strict on you, or what was he like?
Yeah, no, but yeah, he was good. He did a lot of research, and a lot of the things.
Quite scientific about it.
Scientific, just well thought out. Maybe a little bit ahead of his time.
Really?
Some of the stuff he was doing. So, certainly what he did worked for me.
Definitely.
Nobody could kind of. Jim pretty much had to be on his best day. If I was playing well, he had to be on his very best day.
Yeah.
Over the piece, I tended to be more consistent than
right.
most of them.
Yeah, so.
I was at the top for 10 years, so I was doing something right.
Definitely, yeah, it was amazing. Yes, for sure. Your first trophy. What was your first ever trophy?
I don't
Do you remember?
know. The first one I remember is playing with Barry Kinnaird. I won the under 18 national doubles.
Right, really?
So that was the first big thing I won. So I remember that because I remember getting the trophy for that.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
It was a little bit gutted that at that point Barry was the kind of top seed.
Yeah.
And I played him in the singles and beat him.
Yeah.
But then lost in the semi of the singles. So I was like,
I know.
But then to come away with the doubles, it didn't matter. I was like,
Your favourite event? Did you say your favourite event was singles then? Mostly then, were they?
Yeah. So most of my results came from singles.
Who was your drive? Do you think, Bruce? Who was the individual? Is there somebody you could put your name to and said the person I always strove to be that brought out the best competition in me was? Who do you think? Do you have anybody like that? Do you think back and say he was really influential in making me better?
You have to say my parents are probably
really
most influential in trying to, my mum had the medals. I wanted to get some of my own.
Yeah, brilliant.
My dad was driving me through the coaching. He'd played for Scotland, so I was trying to kind of do the same.
Yeah.
Competition-wise, when I was young, likes of Craig Robertson, David Gilmer, Barry Kinnaird, Chris Johnson, a few other guys, they were all better than me. So I was never the best as a junior.
That's good though, right? That brings you on, doesn't
So
it?
I always had people
Good.
that I felt would drag me up.
Yeah, it's good.
So
Isn't
once I got to the seniors, Jim was probably the most consistent rival.
Yeah.
He was always there for. There must have been about 5 or 6 years that he was there, and there'd be a couple of years where he was beating me.
Yeah.
When I was in my kind of 20s, the very early 20s, 19, 20, around about that age, he'd be winning. And it wasn't till I beat him the first time in the Nationals that and that was me about 21. And at that point, that's where that was my kind of break into the senior. So I'd played for Scotland as a junior when I was about 17.
Yeah, right.
But that was basically, and I'm really honest about it, everybody else was injured or unavailable. And they just gave me a chance.
You always think that. Everybody thinks that. Yeah.
No, I know that was reality. And that's fine, because it was about 3 or 4 years before I played for Scotland again.
And what was your relationship like with Jim? Were you friends? Were you enemies when you walked on? Would you have a laugh? Would you meet outside, or did you hate each other and that made you fight against each other? What was that like?
We never hated each other, but we were more rivals in the early days.
Yeah, good, isn't it? Yeah. It's good, isn't it?
But I don't think
you weren't pally. No,
each other because you weren't. No, that developed later. Right. As once we'd got all the competition nonsense out of the way. But for me, there were still other players that were a big challenge. David Gilmer, was always that year above me, playing in teams before me, and I was always trying to knock him off. Unfortunately, he had a few injuries, and that kind of took him out a little bit. But I still played him in one of the national finals and won. So for me, that was a good thing. Somebody who had been, above me as a junior to overtake and beat them was good. And then I always found playing Kenny Middlemiss very, very difficult.
Really?
He was such a good all-rounder.
Yeah.
He had singles national titles, and he had numerous doubles and mixed national titles.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably he'd stopped playing singles that I managed to beat him. He just had a style that I found difficult to play against. Really. And so,
in what way is touch or deception? Do you think?
He was very quick on his feet. Right. He was very accurate. Didn't make many mistakes. He would very rarely lose to anybody. You had to beat him.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
And I found him quite tricky to play.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Yeah. And do you miss that level of competition, do you think, Bruce? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I if I was physically able, I would still try and play.
Yeah, it's...
I'd still... And I did... I played for quite a few years after I'd retired with injuries and things, just because I loved the competition.
Yeah, that's right.
There was a year I got to the final of the Nationals, and I found out afterwards I had prolapsed disc in my back. Wow. I didn't find out till a lot of years later, but I'd played the full tournament.
Wow.
With a couple of prolapsed discs, and it wasn't good. I ended up conceding in the final.
Wow, that's terrible.
But that was the level that there's quite often I'd be so keen to play, I would kind of go, I'm just playing regardless of injury.
Yes, that's right. I've done that myself. Yeah.
And then I'd go on the court, get halfway through a set, and go,
I can't do this.
No, I can't. Can't do it. But I couldn't stop myself going on. So that's there's any young kids there, don't do that.
Yes. I don't know, when you're a determined sportsman, you see it. I don't know if you watched the Carolina Marin documentary. So she have you seen them on Netflix? She was injured and she went on. I mean, she fell and she couldn't stand up, and she continued to play. And I think she played 1 point and then went, "Do you know, this is ridiculous." And she was seriously injured for quite a long time, I think, out of the game completely. Playing it, did you watch that? She was sitting on a chair with a foot up in a cast, hitting shuttles back.